Good morning again. So we are back to kick off the second half of our symposium today. Before I exit the virtual stage for good, I just want to introduce our next speaker, my colleague, Will Peterson. Will, as I mentioned earlier, is Assistant Deputy Superintendent in the Cybersecurity Division. He came to DFS after spending a number of years working in information security in the banking industry. That expertise has been tremendously valuable to him and to us as he has taken over our cybersecurity specialist examiner team and has also lead responsibility for building out our cybersecurity program here. And I'll just say that after Will's short presentation, we're going to be hearing from a panel moderated by my colleague, Rob Francis. Rob is DFS's CISO, so his core responsibility is to keep us safe. And he came to DFS after quite a long list of jobs, both in government, ranging from serving at U.S. Cyber Command to being with the Federal Reserve, examining systemically important banks for cybersecurity. And most recently, he was working at a bank as a senior information security official. And with that, I will turn us over to Will. Thank you all. And I'll put in one more pitch for our day 2 and day 3. Please follow our website and sign up for those when those signups become available. We think those will be more great presentations. All right, thank you. And Will, I'll turn it over to you.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you, Justin. So I'll be discussing how DFS is modernizing cybersecurity supervision and just describe the processes and methods in which DFS will enhance its ability to monitor cyber risk of its regulated entities. So before I start, I'd like to provide a recap of the Cybersecurity Division. The Cybersecurity Division was established in 2019. It's the first of its kind to be established within the banking or insurance regulator space. One of the key responsibilities is to set policy, oversight, and enforcement related to the Part 500 regulation. The Cybersecurity Division consists of 4 units, all of whom report to Executive Deputy Superintendent Justin Herring. Those units are Intelligence, Legal, Supervision, and Operations. So the Department of Financial Services supervises and regulates the activities of more than 1,400 banking and other financial institutions and nearly 1,800 insurance companies. The size and complexity of those companies range to multinational and Fortune 500 companies to local financial service companies and small businesses. Whether the institution is a financial service company or an insurance entity, large or small, because Part 500 regulation is based on a risk assessment, it's flexible and allows organizations to tailor their cybersecurity programs based on cyber risk, while ensuring that organizations apply adequate administrative, technical, and physical controls to protect non-public information. So in addition to Part 500, our examinations cover FFIEC guidelines for financial institutions. So as part of the overall safety and soundness exam, our examiners will evaluate companies based on IT-related risk and their respective third parties. Our examiners also use NYSDFS handbook for insurers with examinations focused on evaluating an insurer's business processes and controls related to its current financial condition and solvency. Exhibit C evaluates controls and information technology to identify general IT control risk. Depending on the type of business, our examiners will focus on FFIEC guidance or the NYSDFS handbook. But overall, our examinations will include a review of Part 500 and the evaluation of the company's cybersecurity program. So at DFS, we supervise about 3,200 companies. For a long time now, the cornerstone for regulators to assess cyber risk and cybersecurity posture for those companies has been primarily based on previous examination reports and 2 to 3 year examination cycles to supervise those companies. Because cyber threats move fast, data from those 2 to 3 year exam cycles is really not fast enough to adapt to threats, and in some cases may not be relevant to address current threats. Therefore, at DFS, we've begun to modernize our approach. We've incorporated methodologies and tools from the private sector to better and faster assess cyber risk facing over the 3,200 DFS regulated entities on an ongoing and real-time basis. Overall, our goal is to identify and assess companies with elevated risk, prioritize examinations based on that approach, and monitor companies to ensure proper oversight. So what we've done is develop a cyber risk assessment process that combines traditional regulatory approach with modern cyber risk assessment practices. This process provides a comprehensive assessment that will provide a baseline for cyber risk, improve transparency and regulatory oversight, and enable DFS to focus its efforts on areas of greatest risk, such as scheduling and scoping examinations. So moving from left to right, this slide will capture the following information from the traditional data points highlighted in blue. So for example, we'll be looking at examination data. We'll also be looking at annual certification status and cyber events. In addition to those traditional data points, we will include third-party risk management practices and tools highlighted in green, such as the Cybersecurity and Information Technology Baseline Risk Questionnaire, which we call internally the Cyber IQ questionnaire, which is a questionnaire that our regulated companies will provide to us periodically. We will also be using private industry tools, such as security scorecard ratings, into our overall assessment. Security Scorecard is a tool that uses non-intrusive, open source methods to assess the cybersecurity posture of external-facing or internet-facing systems. All right, this slide drills down into the traditional data points that we will review as part of the risk ranking for each company. So again, moving from left to right, we capture the following traditional data points, which we will use to assess the risk of each covered entity. Again, examination data. We're looking at last examined scope. We're looking at prior ratings, such as individual URSIT ratings or overall composite ratings. We'll also look at, we'll also risk score companies based on findings. So if they have MRAs or MRIAs, that will also be a factor. And then also we'll be looking at previous Part 500 violations and take that into consideration into the risk ranking. The last two columns, annual certification status and cyber events. So with annual certifications, we'll be risk scoring. If you file on time, that's great, but if you're late filing or do not file, that will also create a level of elevated risk. In addition to cyber events, we'll be looking at the history of reported cyber events. We'll also take into consideration any unreported cyber events that were not reported at the DFS, and also take into consideration any significant outages that may have impacted a company's ability to provide services. So again, the overall risk score that we're looking at companies, it was the traditional examinations and information collected, and we're also taking into consideration the modern cybersecurity risk assessment practices and tools, such as I mentioned earlier, cybersecurity questionnaire or cyber IQ and security scorecard. So moving from left to right, we'll look at cyber IQ. The cyber IQ questionnaire was created to provide DFS with a profile of that, really to provide us with a profile of a covered entity cybersecurity posture and to identify any potential cyber risk. We are currently piloting this questionnaire with about 130 companies, but the goal is to have each company submit a completed questionnaire on our DFS secure portal on a periodic basis. After the pilot program is completed, our goal is to issue the questionnaire to companies by early 2023. What we'll do at DFS is we'll reach out to each organization's compliance contacts. We'll be giving them instructions on how to register on the Cyber IQ platform, and Supervision will provide assistance to facilitate the onboarding process. The Cyber IQ is broken down into 5 sections, which are based on the 5 core functions of the NIST cybersecurity framework. Responses are submitted electronically and will be used to guide supervision activities, as well as assess risk and trends across the financial services sector. Cyber IQ responses will not replace the first day letter or examination request list, and DFS will require companies to update their responses to the Cyber IQ periodically. So in addition to Cyber IQ, we'll be using security scorecard ratings as another risk factor. DFS is using security scorecard analysis tools to rate the cybersecurity posture for DFS regulated entities. Security Scorecard is a global leader in cybersecurity ratings. Their service continually rates millions of organizations, and it's used by organizations for self-monitoring, third-party risk management, board reporting, and cyber insurance underwriting. Again, Security Scorecard uses non-intrusive, open source scanning tools to review and assess external-facing IP addresses. For our purposes, when we're assessing risk for our covered entities, we'll be looking at 8 of the 10 risk categories in our assessment process. And Security Scorecard will also be used on examinations. So examiners will use Security Scorecard ratings as lead value to help with their examinations. We understand that Security Scorecard is a valuable tool, but to ensure completeness, examiners will be validating the information in the scorecard before applying it into our examination processes. And as I pointed out earlier, it's just one of the many tools that we will use to assess cyber risk posture of companies. So Cyber IQ and the exam data will provide that inside information for us. And then Security Scorecard provides that current view of a regulated entity's internet-facing cybersecurity posture. So essentially, by combining the traditional exam data and incorporating the cyber risk tools, such as the cybersecurity questionnaire and security scorecard, we will have a more robust and current understanding of regulated companies' cybersecurity posture. This will enable us as regulators to make better informed supervisory and policymaking decisions. So moving forward from the cybersecurity risk assessment process, we have additional modernization efforts that are focused on people and processes. So at DFS, we want to continue to build operational partnerships with our state and federal counterparts. For example, on our staff, we have 3 examiners that serve as IT instructors for the Conference of State Bank Supervisors. Those trainers teach other state examiners on how to conduct IT examinations based on FFIEC guidance. Additionally, DFS has recently worked with our counterparts from the New York Fed on training their examiners on Part 500 regulation and applying Part 500 regulation on joint examinations. Whenever new guidance, such as ransomware guidance or MFA guidance, or even cyber alerts are issued, Supervision collaborates with our internal training and intelligence divisions to ensure examiners are trained. We've hosted 12 training sessions for our examiners and covered areas such as SolarWinds, Exchange, Pulse Secure, Log4j, and we have also hosted a 3-part mini-series on MFA and our MFA guidance for examiners. And actually, a couple weeks ago, we've actually hosted another training session to ensure that our examiners are properly informed about the 2021 FFIEC authentication guidance. So in addition to the training, we've operationalized our guidance through MFA work programs and ransomware job aids. We've also provided examiner talking points to help examiners guide discussions with management on topics such as supply chain risk, and recently for the alert issued with the Russian-Ukraine conflict. So overall, our supervision is leading the way by providing relevant and actionable information to our examiners so they can ensure our companies are aware of the supervisory concerns with respect to cyber risk. So to close out the presentation, again, our approach has been to combine traditional regulatory methods with modern cybersecurity assessment tools to focus supervisory efforts on the most significant risk. Our goal at Supervision is also to invest in people. So as an agency, we not only want our examiners to be familiar with Part 500 and industry best practices, but we also want to empower them with resources and tools to be better examiners. And I'll also note, as Justin alluded to earlier, DFS is hiring. So if anyone that is interested in being part of our team of cybersecurity examiners and wants to make an impact, we are looking for you. So definitely look at our job postings page and if you're interested. Lastly, I'll just point out that improving cyber risk management is in everyone's best interest. Cyber attacks threaten an organization's reputation, their brand, and it leads to financial consequences, including fines and penalties. As regulators, we also must modernize and adapt our practices to ensure that critical cyber risks are being addressed by the companies we supervise. So with that, I thank you for attending, and I kick it off to Robert Francis for his roundtable discussion.